Hey everybody, since we're all quarantined and have to stay in all the time and can't do stuff like go out and order food and I don't know, go to restaurants or whatever, I wanted to post something about something fun and extravagant you can do at home to eat good food and feel like you're special even when you have to stay away from other people, and that's bake bread. So today we're going to learn how to make a very basic bread recipe. People get it up in their heads that it's hard to make bread, that bread is persnickety and challenging, and it's really not. Bread is super easy to make. And the thing I love about making bread is that even if you kind of screw it up, you still have bread, and it's still better than anything you can buy at the grocery store. So let's give it a try. So here's the thing. Bread is made up of 4 ingredients. All bread has at least 4 ingredients, and then you can do other stuff as well, but there's at least 4 you have to have. You gotta have flour. And right here, this is bread flour, but you can also use all-purpose flour, bleached, unbleached, doesn't matter. You can add whole grain flours if you want to, but this recipe is gonna be super basic. It's just your basic standard white bread. In fact, it's a recipe that I call trashy white bread. Because it is meant to be unnutritious and decadent and taste great. It has butter, it has sugar, it has a soft crust. It's not trying to be artisanal or small batch or fancy. It's not trying to win any awards. It's just trying to be yummy, okay? So we're going to use just regular old bread flour. You got to have yeast, that's your second ingredient, and I've got here fast rise yeast, but you can use active dry as well. You'll get about the same results. You got to have some salt. That helps to slow down the yeast, and that helps to add flavor. And you got to have some water. The water is there to mix it all together and to give it the right consistency. We're going to be adding some sugar to this recipe, and we're going to be adding some butter. There's some good melted butter we're going to throw in there as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I've already gone ahead and measured out the flour, so there it is in the bowl. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the other ingredients and just dump them all into the bowl together. So I've got some flour in here. The recipe's in the doodly-doo, so you can see the recipe. So I've got my flour measured out already. I'm going to put in about 3/4 of a tablespoon of yeast, and I'm not measuring it real carefully because careful measurements are for rubes. We're just going to go ahead and throw stuff together. So about 3/4 of a tablespoon of yeast, bam, in the bowl. About the same amount of salt. As a rule of thumb, you want to put in about the same amount of salt and yeast for any bread recipe. So unless you have some other plan in mind, if you just keep salt and yeast about the same, you're going to get good results. About the same amount of salt, dump that in there, good. This recipe calls for 1 tablespoon of sugar. There it goes. And now we're not going to put the fat in yet. We're going to hold off on that. We're going to go ahead and dump our water in. So there we go. Dump our water in the bowl all together. If you could see, here I'll show you, it's starting to bubble up just a little bit already just because of the little yeasties are eating the sugar and the flour, and they're starting to fart, which is what makes bread rise. Bread rises because of yeast farts. Did you know that? Now you know that. So I'm going to take my rubber spatula. Any rubber spatula will do, and I'm going to stir it up, stir it up, stir it up until it gets to the point that I can start to knead it, okay? And so as you stir it up, you want to make sure that all of the flour gets moistened. You want to make sure that all the flour in there gets moistened. This actually is looking a little bit dry. I might have put in a little bit too much flour, which is fine. As you do this more, you begin to get a sense of how it should look. So I'm just going to go ahead and get a little more water and dump that in until it looks about right. And right just means that it is soft enough that you can handle it, but firm enough that it's not sticking to your hands too much. And so we're going to put a little bit more water in there. The water, by the way, should be lukewarm if you're making a standard bread. You can use cold water. If you use cold water, you're going to get more flavor, but it's going to take longer to rise. So if you use cold water, give it a few hours to rise, and you're going to get a more thoroughly developed yeast flavor than if you were to use just regular old lukewarm water. The only thing to avoid is using water that's too warm because it can scorch the yeast and kill it. So when the dough gets to about this consistency right here, we are going to get our hands into it. And there's no way around this. This is just a messy process. So I'm going to flour my hands a little bit, and I'm just going to get into that bowl and start squishing that flour around. And what we're doing here is 2 things. We're using our hands to We're using our hands to incorporate the flour and get everything mixed up together. And then we're using our hands to develop the gluten in the wheat. What makes bread rise is the wheat itself has a protein called gluten in it that some people can't have. But if you can have gluten, then you should have gluten. And as that gluten stretches, as the little yeasties eat up the sugar in the bread and they fart, the little yeasties make the gluten stretch and create little bubbles. And those bubbles are what give the bread its rise. So I've already started kneading the bread. And now that all of the, here, let me adjust this so that you can see what I'm doing here. There we go. Now that all of the flour has been moistened, we're going to get our fat in there. And I'm just going to make a little divot in the middle of my lump. And I'm going to pour that butter in. There we go. This is going to get messy. That's okay. We can do messy. And we're just going to kind of mix it around. And we're going to knead it until it is all smooth. It takes a good 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the dough, to get it fully kneaded. So right now, I'm just trying to get the butter incorporated. And then once the butter's all incorporated, then I will start to actually knead the dough to the right consistency. And for starters, I don't worry too much about it sticking. It's going to stick. It's going to be kind of messy. Messy is okay. We can do messy. Messy is fine. We're just going to get our fingers in there and squish it around. If it's too moist, and this is a little bit on the moist side, I added too much water. I always do that. What I found is that I'd rather have the dough be a little bit too moist than too dry because you can always add more flour. It is much harder to add more water once you're kneading it. So I'm going to keep adding a little sprinkle of flour to keep it from sticking. And I'm just going to keep kneading it until it's the right consistency. Now let's talk about kneading technique, okay? So when you knead, the basic motion is this. You want to push it down with your left hand, and then you want to fold it over, turn it a quarter, fold it, push, fold, turn, 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 push. Just keep doing that, and as you get used to it and you develop some muscle memory, you can vary that motion a little bit. Now I'm rolling the dough around to pick up the flour that's sprinkled all over the countertop. The gluten is developing to the point, let me get down so you can see my face. The gluten's developing to the point that it's sticking to itself and not to my hands. And so that makes it easier. And we're just going to keep doing this. We're going to keep kneading it like this until it is ready. There's something absolutely wonderful about sticking your hands in fresh dough. It's a tactile symphony. It feels great. It's creative. It uses your muscles. It's fairly strenuous activity, actually. You start to get elevated heart rate because your body's working pretty hard to pound that dough into shape. And so we just keep doing it. We keep working that dough, keep working that dough, keep working that dough until it is right. And if you look at it now, you can see that it is starting to get stretchy and supple. Notice it doesn't stick to my hand. That's because the gluten in the wheat is sticking to itself and not to anything else. And so we're just going to keep working it, keep working it, keep working it. Until it passes what is called the window pane test. Are you ready for the window pane test? So the window pane test, you take a little lump of dough like this, roll it around in our fingers, and then we stretch it out. And if we can stretch it to the point that it's translucent without tearing, oh, that's not window paning yet. We got to keep kneading it. So we're going to keep kneading it, keep kneading our dough until it gets there. So this is kind of a long process. What are you all doing to make it through the self-quarantine? How are you staying sane? If it's not clear, I'm making a lot of bread. My kids like to eat bread. I like to eat bread. And doing some other cooking. I wish you could smell my kitchen right now. I'm making beans from an old fresh ham bone, and it's like an umami sledgehammer everywhere in here. It's wonderful. Maybe I'll give you that recipe too. All right, that's another minute or two of kneading. let's see if it's window painting now. So we're gonna rip off a lump of dough, and we're gonna stretch it, stretch it, stretch it, stretch it, stretch it. And it's almost there. It's close. It's close. Still a little bit rippy rather than translucent. So we're going to keep stretching it, keep kneading it. And again, our technique, we fold, push, turn, 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 fold, push, turn. Hi, Wyatt. Fold, push, turn, fold, push, turn. The other technique you use for kneading is you use the heels of your hands once it's really come together like this, and you just kind of push with your heels back and forth. And that way, you're mixing the dough up, you're using the warmth of your hands to develop the yeast in the wheat, and you're getting your hands to different parts of the dough all throughout the process, and that way all of it is getting the right treatment. All right, let's try that window pane test one more time. I'll bet it's going to be good now. Let's see. Doop, 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 doop. Yeah, buddy, there we go. Look at that. All right, that is ready to rock and roll. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to take our lump of dough, and we're just going to kind of sit it up like this, and we're going to take our mixing bowl, and we're going to go like this. And we're going to wait for an hour. So come back in an hour, okay? Hey folks, so it's been an hour and we are going to check our bread and see where we're at in terms of bread rising. So I'm going to lift this up. I haven't touched it since the last time we did this, so let's go ahead and lift it up and look at that. Ooh, it got so big that it touched the edge. So this is about double in size what it was when I first put it in there. So we're going to put away our bowl, and this is quite literally my favorite part of all bread baking. This is where you get to punch the dough down. So you take, and that's just what it sounds like. You take your fist and you go like this. Right? And you punch it so that it gets reduced. The first rise with bread is not intended to actually make the bread like get leavened. The first rise is to stretch the gluten out so that when you do shape your loaf and the bread rises, it rises correctly and it rises evenly and it rises in a way that is appetizing. So anyway, now we've got our bread. It's back to the size it was, but the texture is quite different. It's much more supple. It just feels wonderful in your hands. It moves easily. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to shape it into a loaf and let it get set up for its second rise, okay? Now, the easiest way to do a bread loaf is just to put it in a loaf pan. All you got to do, basically, is get it into kind of an oblong shape like this and drop it into a loaf pan and let it rise. It'll rise to the shape of that loaf. But I want to assume that maybe you all don't have loaf pans. And if you don't have a loaf pan, then the easiest way to do a bread loaf is to make a bowl, which is a round shape that will rise up nicely. And the only trick with that is getting it so that it rises up and not out. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Watch my hands, okay? So we're going to take our loaf and we're going to set it up so that it's basically round. And then what I'm going to do is use the heels of my hands and push underneath. And that way, and I'm going to turn it around in a circle using the heels of my hands to push under. Push it and turn, push it and turn, push it and turn until the outside starts to get stiff and stretched out and it starts to get higher rather than longer, okay? See how we're doing that? We just keep doing that until we get a nice surface tension, and that way, when the bread rises, it'll rise up instead of out. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple more little turns here and just pinch the bottom of it down like this, and then I'm going to spray a cookie sheet, spray, 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 and we're going to drop our loaf on that cookie sheet just like that. Bam. We're going to let that go for about an hour. Now, you're going to want to cover that so it doesn't dry out. And so when I do that, I have a big plastic bag that I use. So I'm just going to take this big old plastic bag, and I'm going to shove my dough in there. I'm going to puff it way up so that it doesn't touch the bread. And we're going to fold it down. And we're going to walk away for another hour. So I'll see you in an hour. Hey everybody, are you ready to have a look at our bread? It's been an hour, it's been sitting here quietly rising, nobody messing with it, being left alone. It's had a nice nap. I usually am much more expansive when I have a nice nap, so let's see what's happened to our bread after its nap. Oh my goodness, you're not ready for this. You have no idea. Look at that! Oh my goodness. It has risen double. It is gigantic. It's alive! All right, so here's what we're going to do. This is going to seem counterintuitive, but trust me, this is important. We're going to take a little sprinkling of flour, and we're going to just dust it over the top like that. Not too much, just a little bit. And we're going to spread it gentle with our hand. And then we're going to take a bread knife, and we're going to cut across the middle. Not too deep, no more than like half an inch, but just enough that way when the bread rises in the oven, it'll rise straight up and not in weird, funky, contusive ways. So here's what I'm just going to go like this. Quick motion, zoop, and then zoop. And I'll bring the webcam over so that you can see what that looks like from the top. There, just like that. And so what's going to happen now is that when we put this in the oven, the heat is going to cause all the little yeasties to die out in an orgy of bacterial flatulence, okay? They're just going to go bonkers as they get hotter, and that's going to make the bread rise up even more. And then the crust is going to harden and the bread's going to bake all the way through and stop rising. And so if you cut it like this, what that does is that causes the bread to rise in a nice straight manner and not poof out everywhere. So that's the idea here, okay? So I've done that. I'm going to let it sit for another minute or two. I've got my oven preheated to about 350 degrees. You can see the oven over there. And so we're just going to slip it in the oven for about 30 minutes and then test it and see how it's doing, all right? So here we go. I'm going to put it in the oven now. There's the oven. There goes the bread. All right, I'll see you in about half an hour. Hey folks, all right, it has been about 45 minutes. It took longer than I thought to bake the bread, but it is now ready. So, pot holder on. You ready for this? No, you're not. You think you're ready, but you're not. Let's have a look at our bread. So I'm going to open up the oven and pull this dude out. Would you look at that? That is some bread right there. So it has gotten nice and puffy and big. Notice how it rose more or less straight up. It's a little cockeyed, but it's pretty much straight up. And so with bread, I have a thermometer here because I did test the temp, and the temperature inside is about 190, which is where you want it to be. You don't need that, though. The best way to test to see if bread is done is this. Tap it. If it makes a nice hollow sound, if it's a nice golden brown like this, odds are that the bread is where you need it to be. And so now what I'm going to do, so if I were a gourmet chef, I would probably let this bread sit for about 2 hours before I sliced into it, but I'm not a gourmet chef. I am a Kansas trash mammal, and so I'm going to let this bread sit for maybe 20 minutes, and then I'm going to cut into it and I'm going to put it in my face with butter because it is going to be so good. So I hope this has been helpful to you. The idea here was to create a bread recipe that is as simple as can be, that doesn't require any specialized ingredients or specialized tools, just stuff that most people would have laying around their kitchen. So this is the basic trashy white bread recipe. And that's going to produce a white bread that'll be great for slathering with butter and eating. It'll make nice sandwiches. It should hold up well if you wanted to use it for sandwich bread. It'll toast beautifully in the morning. Because it has some fat content, the crust is not going to be real crispy. It's not going to be like French bread and have that crackle. You need to use no fat in your dough, and you need to use a steam oven to do that. That's a more advanced technique. You can do that in a home oven, but it takes a little bit more, some specialized tools and things like that. But this is going to be delicious bread, and you can make it, if you have yeast and flour, you can make this with the stuff you have laying around your house. So
get to it. As I said before, the recipe is in the doodly doo down below. And you can, my social media is there too. You can hit me up on Twitter. Let me know. Send pics to my Twitter if you make some bread. Let me know how it comes out. Send me questions if you want. DMs are open, or you can just at me on Twitter, and I'll be happy to offer up advice or whatever. And I hope this was enjoyable for you. So happy baking.